Hello everybody, my name is Nyree and you will find me on a channel that does all things relating to adoption family life. If that's something that interests you, then please hit the pink subscribe button you see down in the corner of the screen. And on my channel I cover adoption processes, the types of children that you might take in, also things covering behaviour and trauma. So again, as I say, if that interests you, then please subscribe. Today, the subject of my video is all about how it happened for me, what it was like for me in the first few days when my boys, who I've now adopted, came into my home. They were actually foster children at the time, but I'm sure that some of the situations that I found myself in, you might find yourself in too. So if you're interested in the types of behaviours that I came across with them and experiences that I had over those first days and weeks, then please stick around for the videos. So one of the first issues that we had, because the boys were very small, is we had to find the appropriate type of clothing for them. So the first thing we did was work out, what age clothing they were going to need, and it took absolutely ages to get the right clothing so that it didn't fall off of them. So that was our first challenge. We managed to get past that, and the next was going to be, well, what do they eat? What do they like eating? And it was clear to us that the younger child was basically on milk still, bottles of milk. He was 2 years old, he was just about to turn 2, and he seemed to only know how to drink milk from a bottle. He didn't seem to recognise many foods. There were a few foods that he did recognise, which were more what I call processed, sort of handheld foods, but as far as a meal was concerned, it did seem that he did not know what these foods were. And the older child out of the two, he was very keen to eat, but he seemed to be sort of really hungry. So our first issue was, how are we going to provide for them a nutritious meal? How are we going to get them to eat? How are we going to get them to enjoy the food that we offer? One of the mistakes that we made, I think, in those early days was to perhaps overdo it with the food. So we would put a nutritious meal on the table and try and make it colourful, adaptable for them. But the reality is that they weren't ready for it, and particularly the younger child needed to just try out new foods like a baby would, even though he was older. And the older child just tended to overeat really, and then make himself very sick. So we had to kind of pull that back a little bit and go easy with it, put smaller portions on the table, separate foods out for the little one so he could work out what was going on with those. And we did avoid sort of what I would call gag-worthy type foods. Particularly the younger one had a lot of issues around things that would stick to the roof of the mouth and back of the mouth. So things like mashed potato and things that are more cleggy we had to avoid. This can sometimes be partly a developmental thing and a speech and language thing when they can't actually, swallow things very well. So we kind of went back to more basic foods. That we obviously had issues with was sleeping, as I'm sure you can imagine that this was going to be a challenge for us. So what we hadn't anticipated, we had one other foster placement who was a girl who was a little bit older, and so it was obvious she was going to be sleeping in a bed. And we'd asked the social workers whether they knew what the sleeping arrangements were in the house, and they couldn't tell us this. So we had to work out what we were going to do with the boys. So the first thing that we kind of anticipated is that they probably want to be together. We had the room to separate them, but we put them together in the same room. And we gave it wasn't going to work very well, because what happened was, or what we didn't realise was, is that actually they never experienced being apart from each other in the bed, and certainly the little one had never experienced a cot. So I remember going downstairs and waiting and thinking, oh, I think this has gone really well. We settled them really well. And then within minutes I heard a thud, and actually the little one had managed to climb over the cot. I don't know how he'd done that, and managed to get himself out of the cot and was just looking at me on the bedroom floor, well, not on the bedroom floor, standing on the bedroom floor, as if to say, why did you just put me in that cage? So another issue was going to be sorting out the arrangements, and in the end what we did is we put 2 separate beds in the same room so that they could get to each other, to be fair, but actually they had their separate space. But we often found that in the morning they would be in bed together, they would join together in some way, because what we worked out later from information that we were given later on is that they'd always been together, probably in the same bed, potentially even in the same bed as their sisters or even the adults in the bedtimes is often a scary time for children. It's when lots of abuse can happen. It's when they tend to get more nightmares. It's dark. Lots of things can really freak them out. So there's a few things that you can put in place. Of course, you can think about having a very dim night light that you plug in. You can potentially have some low music on, or you can literally just sit in the room and wait until they've fallen asleep. And for us, unfortunately, that's what we needed to do. Particularly the little one definitely didn't want to be left. He was very, very, very scared at night time. And so for many hours, we would just sit on the bed and wait for him to fall asleep, because as a foster carers, we weren't allowed to have them in bed with us. As adopters, they're our children. We could have done what we wanted to, but as foster carers, we needed to stay awake from bringing them into our bed. So we would sit on the end of the bed until he was asleep, and he was always ready for something to go wrong. And this is the thing about the fears and phobias and nighttime situation, that children are often ready for something to go wrong, and those night times took a long time to get right. And I think as long as you're up for that, then that's fine. And what I'm trying to say is really these behaviours are normal. So sleeping was an issue, but we did get there in the end. Other things that we found were difficulties for the boys really is knowing how to play and knowing how to play appropriately. So the early days were very much hoarding their toys and things that they had. I've made another video which I will upload for you on hoarding behaviour in children, but they tended to sort of pile things together in the room or carry things around with them rather than sit down and try and play with them. And certainly they couldn't play without an adult intervening and supporting that play. So what that meant was 24/7 really we were with them. During the day we would need to facilitate play, and at night time we'd often need to facilitate nighttime procedures. So that's a very time consuming and tiring situation to have when you have young children all day, all night, and you're needing to be with them. We still find play is an issue. We still find that that's because language-wise, language delays are there. There's another link there for a video. And so therefore trying to have imaginative play when your language is not fully developed, the two things go hand in hand. So we just found that play was a bit of an issue with them as well. And so it's important perhaps to try and encourage play and give them options and opportunities which are straightforward. So you show them how to do something and you sit alongside and support them to do that, rather than just letting them use their imagination and hope for the best. Because we obviously found that with the boys that there would be a fight breaking out, or there would be some sort of sibling rivalry that would then happen if we were here to bang his head against the door and against the floor. So rages, meltdowns, headbanging, this was all normal for us when we first had them, and this is a sign of neglect and abuse that they brought with them. The older child out of the two was quite reserved. Actually, he would just sort of fade into the background, but the little one was doing a lot of self-harming or sort of lower level self-harming behaviour, which again was his frustration. And so we were having to supervise them all the time and try and help him to regulate. So risky behaviour really and meltdowns was common for us. Between either of the boys' sisters, even the more reserved one, then they wouldn't be able to come out of it very easily on their own. And with the little one, the temper tantrum or meltdown could go on for hours and hours and hours. And this might simply be because we knew that he needed to go to sleep at night or during the day, and he wasn't prepared to do that, and so would just literally scream and scream and scream. Now we would hold him, we would try and comfort him, but when children are that traumatized and that neglected, emotional regulation means, or lack of emotional regulation means, they cannot actually contain their emotions, and this overwhelming feeling of fear comes over them. So you may find as a new adopter or a new foster carer that you have children who struggle to emotionally regulate, and it's a very scary thing to see. But what you need to understand, guys, is it is normal and you will get there in the end. The more they realise you're going to be there for them and you're going to be their attachment figure, the better it will get for you. So we had lots of hours where everybody is going off into a huge meltdown, and then we would need to comfort and we would need to help and be there for them. And finally, the evidence of direct abuse, we would find that nappy changes and becoming too close to them. Things like that were a problem for them. They were very fearful that they were going to be hurt, and so we made sure that we were very tentative, very kind. We would find things to offer them, things to do with them around nappy changing times when they will react, and make sure that we could, you know, demonstrate to them that they were not going to be hurt, they were not going to be harmed. So these are just a few of the behaviours, guys, that we experienced when the boys came into us. They were very neglected. They were complex cases, complex children. It doesn't mean to say that you will take on adopted children that will have those levels of behaviour. If you're a foster carer, you may do, but I think perhaps what it does help you to do is when you see some of these behaviours that I've mentioned happen, it make you feel relieved that you know that what I've said to you is that, you know, it can be there and these are the reasons why, and that lots of these behaviours are normal, and it's just a case of spending your time staying patient, staying calm, and working your way through it. Guys, if you have found the video helpful and you think that information around adoption family life is going to be useful to you, you'll find lots of helpful videos on my channel, so feel free to give me a thumbs up, like, and to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Goodbye.